Learn more at mathworks.com. And Road Scholar, a not-for-profit educational travel organization offering adventures for adults in more than 100 countries. Learn more at roadscholar.org/explore.
It's here and now. The hope was big. For the estimated millions of Americans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, there seemed to be an exciting cure on the horizon. The drug MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy. But a panel of expert advisors to the Food and Drug Administration recently rejected MDMA therapy as a treatment for PTSD. According to reporting from our editorial partners at STAT, the research trials by a company called Lykos were plagued with problems. The experts said Lykos hadn't collected enough data on the potential addictiveness of the treatment, among other concerns. Olivia Goldhill is an investigative reporter with STAT, the health and medicine publication. She's also writing a book on psychedelics, and she's here to tell us more. Welcome, Olivia.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So it might surprise some that ecstasy is up for FDA approval to be used therapeutically. Could you give us a quick overview about how Lykos said this psychedelic drug MDMA works to treat PTSD?
Sure. So MDMA is one of many psychedelics currently being studied for mental health treatment. And MDMA, the research was the most advanced. And the way it works is alongside therapy. So it's people who have PTSD will take the drug while talking with a therapist. And the thinking and the theory behind it is that MDMA kind of creates these feelings of self-love and relaxation, and it makes it much easier to then talk about very traumatic experiences.
So then, FDA really wants to look to see, did these claims actually, are they true? And is there a scientific basis for this? Last week, expert advisors to the FDA said, no, they rejected MDMA as a treatment for PTSD. Why?
So they said there was good research, but just not there yet. And some of it is complicated, right? So when you do research, you're supposed to have blinded trials where nobody knows if they've had the drug or had the placebo. But that's kind of impossible with psychedelics because people know. And another big factor is the combination of drug and therapy is very complicated for the FDA, which only regulates drug use. So it was this huge kind of extra factor that was hard to disentangle. And as the advisory committee talked everything through, there was missing data. There have been allegations of abuse in the past in the trials. There were questions about the conduct of Lykos, and all of these things compounded. And they said they didn't think it was ready for approval yet.
But you spoke to some people close to the process and they, fleshed that out for you a little bit more. Some of the details were a little alarming about this company, Lykos. Tell us more.
Yes. So Lykos was originally created as a subsidiary of this wider nonprofit MAPS, which has been going on since 1986. It was founded by Rick Doblin, who's this very kind of enthusiastic man who's outspoken. He loves drugs. He loves MDMA. He wants it to be legalized. He's done a lot of work to kind of get the FDA to consider these trials. He's been campaigning against prohibition for decades. And MAPS kind of has a very evangelist culture where people, talk about the enthusiasm for these psychedelics.
It was described by some as almost cult-like, and then it comes up against the scientists.
Exactly. I even spoke to someone who was a member of a cult and who worked at MAPS and said it was cult-like. And, there are religious elements, which is not what, psychedelics and science is supposed to be about. And so I spoke to people who are on the research side of things who said that evangelism, that belief in psychedelics infiltrated research. So there was, sloppy data and people getting overly enthusiastic and kind of not conducting trials right. And all of that tainted the results.
Okay. One of the things that we did mention was the fact that they couldn't really prove whether people might become addicted to MDMA if they're using it as a treatment. What did you learn about that?
Yeah, so I don't think there's that big fears about addiction with MDMA. We have enough evidence that yes, there's probably some addictive potential, but it's not going to be as bad as for, things like opioids, is what the research suggests. But the problem is that Lycos were asked to collect certain data that would kind of be used to give an indication about, how addictive it is, when those addictive kind of feelings might start to manifest, things like that. And they failed to do so, which I spoke to people at the company who said this was just sheerly down to disorganization.
So does the company go back to the drawing board from here? Do they do more research? What's the next steps?
Well, the FDA still has to make a decision, and they might decide to approve it. They could decide to do so with additional studies, or they could say, no, we're not ready yet. You need to do more research and then resubmit.
Okay, we'll see what happens next. Olivia Goldhill, investigative reporter with our editorial partners at STAT, the Health and Medicine publication. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
And Here and Now is a production of NPR and WBUR. I'm Deepa Fernandez in Alameda, California.
I'm Tiziana Deering in Boston. This is Here and Now.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the Museum of Science in Boston, dedicated to inspiring a lifelong love of science in everyone, in museums, classrooms, and online, offering engineering design challenges, digital experiences, live presentations, and more. MOS.org.
Hey, this is Steve Inskeep. One of the things you can count on from NPR and this station, we've got your back. When it comes to reporting the news, bringing you facts you can count on. And one thing this station counts on is contributions to keep it going. You can help by donating a vehicle you no longer need, which is free to you, easy to do, and could mean hundreds of dollars worth of support. Thanks.
To donate your
Welcome to our meeting of June 11th, 2024. At this time, I would like those who wish to stand for a moment of silence and then to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon. Welcome to our meeting of June 11, 2024. Regular meetings are held on the second and fourth Tuesday at 3 p.m. Public hearings are held at 7 p.m. on the fourth Tuesday of each month. Deviations from this schedule will be announced. The meetings are broadcast live on RVTV 3, Channel 3, and will be rebroadcast on Thursday at 7 p.m. and on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Board of Supervisors meetings can also be viewed online through Roanoke County's website at www.roanokecountyva.gov. Individuals who require assistance or special arrangements to participate in or attend Board of Supervisors meetings should contact the clerk to the board at 540-772-2005 at least 48 hours in advance. Please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent. Item A, opening ceremonies. Number 1, roll call. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Radford?
Here.
Mrs. Hooker?
Here.
Mr. Mahoney?
Here.
Mr. Shepherd? Mrs. Shepherd?
Here.
Mr. North?
Here. The Board of Supervisors held a closed session today at 1:30 p.m. in the board conference room prior to this regularly scheduled meeting at 3 p.m. pursuant to Section 2.2-3711, Paragraph A, Number 1, to discuss the annual performance evaluations for the county administrator and the county attorney. Item B, certification resolution. In the closed session just concluded, nothing was discussed except the matter which was identified in the motion to convene in closed session. Only those matters lawfully permitted to be discussed under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were discussed. Do I have a motion to adopt the certification resolution?
I would make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I will
Thank you.
second.
And we have a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes, thank you. Item C, request to postpone, add to, or change the order of agenda items. Are there any requests to postpone, add to, or change the order of agenda items, fellow board members?
No, sir.
No,
There
sir.
being none, Mr. Kaywood.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd request that we add as a new item, item D1, a resolution directing the County Planning Commission to study and provide recommendations regarding whether to amend the provisions of the county's zoning ordinance to prohibit the sale of tobacco and nicotine vapor products within 1,000 feet of a school building.
Are there any objections, board, to Mr. Kaywood's request?
No, sir.
Seeing none, the agenda is amended as proposed. Thank you, Mr. Kaywood. Mr. Lubeck, do you have any changes or additions to the agenda?
I have no changes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Item D, new business. Number 1, resolution directing the Roanoke County Planning Commission to study and provide recommendation regarding whether to amend the provisions of the Roanoke County zoning ordinance to prohibit the sale of tobacco and nicotine vapor products within 1,000 feet of school buildings. Chair recognizes County Administrator Richard Kaywood. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this will be very brief. Last week I received a letter from the superintendent of county schools asking that we give consideration to recently passed House Bill 947 that gives local governments the authority to ban or limit the presence of what are commonly called vaping stores within 1,000 feet of schools, daycare, sorts of other land uses listed. And we would recommend that the board direct the Planning Commission to study this issue and bring back recommendations at the earliest possible date. I believe the county attorney has provided a draft resolution for your consideration at the dais.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion from the board?
Yes, sir. I have no objection to implementing the provisions of the recent legislation from the General Assembly. I think as a practical matter, though, I'd like to find out, and I think planning staff will probably tell us, number one, what existing facilities do we already have that fall within that 1,000-foot no zone? So do we already have a problem that's in existence today? I'm guessing, but I'm anticipating, at least in Cave Spring, we probably already have a facility that's right next door to an elementary school. So I kind of wonder, is the horse already out of the barn, and maybe we're just a little too late with this? And then so I'd like to find out how many we already have that are within that exclusion zone. And then secondly, I'd like to clarify, as I understand the language, it's within 1,000 feet of a school building, and it's not necessarily within 1,000 feet of the property line of the school. And that's a very different measurement area. But again, I'll support the resolution, but I think I'd like some factual data to go along with that to really wonder how effective this kind of approach would be, assuming the board in the future would adopt some resolution and or adopt an ordinance to amend our zoning ordinance to address that.
I just want to comment that I read the bill, and the bill grandfathers those units, those places that are already there.
Exactly.
Within 1,000 feet. And Mr. Kaywood, if you could look at the clarification, is it 1,000 feet of the property line of the school or 1,000 physical feet of the entrance to the school?
Absolutely.
Technicality.
I mean, Clearbrook is already a problem.
Well, Oak Grove also has, elementary has a convenience store right across
Exactly.
the street from it.
Exactly.
BP gas station.
Okay. Any more discussion on the subject? There being none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kaywood. Item E, first reading of ordinances. Number 1, ordinance amending Chapter 8.1 of the Roanoke County Code and repealing Chapter 23 of the Roanoke County Code in order to create a consolidated erosion and stormwater management program ordinance. The Chair recognizes Tariq Manier, Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the board. Good afternoon. I have the privilege this afternoon to make the last, or to present the last amendment to the county ordinances for fiscal year 2024, and it's rather a big ordinance amendment, and I hope to get through the presentation here quickly. Pursuant to Virginia consolidation of the erosion and sediment control regulations and stormwater management regulations into the new Virginia erosion and stormwater management regulations, Roanoke County must consolidate its Chapter 8.1 erosion and sediment control ordinance and Chapter 23 stormwater management ordinance into a single erosion and stormwater management ordinance. 2, 1, clarify program requirements. 2, eliminate redundancy. And 3, correct inconsistencies between the erosion and sediment control and stormwater management programs. Except for naming Roanoke County Administrator as the Program Administrator Authority and a few changes by the County Attorney, there are no substantive changes to the existing erosion and sediment control minimum standards or the post-construction stormwater management technical criteria as part of the state's regulatory actions or the county actions to consolidate the ordinances. As of 3 weeks ago, Roanoke County engineers, stormwater management program manager, erosion and sediment control administrator, and review coordinator, and myself, including the stormwater management inspector, have recertified and took the final regulations training by DEQ. This is just a quick overview. So background is, at June 22nd, 2023, State Water Control Board approved and adopted the Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management Regulations and approved the repeal of the Erosion and Sediment Control Regulations, Erosion and Sediment Control and Stormwater Management Certification Regulations, and the Virginia Stormwater Management Program Regulations. The Virginia Erosion Stormwater Management Regulations and repeal of the other regulations will be effective July 1st, 2024. The final Virginia Erosion Stormwater Management Regulations was published on December 4th, 2023 in the Virginia Register of Regulations. I provided the link to the final regulations in the report if somebody would like to see it. And it's right now in front of you as a link. Also on July 1, 2024, Chapter 68 and Chapter 758 of the 2016 Acts of Assembly became effective. Those acts refer to as the Consolidated Bill, combine the stormwater management and erosion and sediment control requirements under the Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management Act. I know it's a mouthful and sometimes it may confuse some people. I hope my report is clear enough and for the audience or anybody who's reading it they can ask questions, of course, or they can contact us and we will be able to clarify these things. With the Consolidations Bill and the Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management Regulation becoming effective on July 1st, 2024, local ordinances for the administrations of the Virginia Erosion and Sediment Control Program or Virginia Stormwater Management Program must be updated to reflect both the new law and the regulations. Consistent with Section 62.1, 1527 of the Code of Virginia, the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality has prepared a Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management Program model ordinance to assist localities in the development of the local ordinance. The DEQ is not required to review and or approve the local ordinances or associated documents, manual, etc. prior to the adoption, meaning that the DEQ will review it and bring concerns after July 1st, 2024 at their only time. Roanoke County may, by local ordinance, adapt pursuant to the section of the Code of Virginia to establish more stringent local requirements. In developing the county's new erosion and sediment control, erosion stormwater management ordinance, the Department of Development Services, with input from Roanoke County Attorney's Office, used the DEQ Virginia Erosion Stormwater Management Program Model Ordinance as a framework and added unique sections from the county's current erosion and sediment control and stormwater management ordinance as follows. We consider the ordinance applicability to the town of Vinton, which is later on, probably in July or August, we will come back to you to amend the memorandum of understanding with town of Vinton regarding this ordinance. Number two, administration of the new erosion stormwater management ordinance in conjunction with the county zoning ordinance. 3, the county's lower threshold of compliance. 4, steep slope requirements. 5, stream buffer requirements. Number 6, schedule of civil penalties for erosion and sediment control and stormwater management violations. Number 7, variances and exceptions. Number 8, naming the county administrator as the program administrator. Number 9, adjusted the right of entry language pursuant to all applicable law. And number 10, adjusting the summons procedures. I added also in the report to note that there are no changes or additions in the proposed erosion and stormwater management ordinance before you for consideration to this evening related to the recommendations regarding the lot drainage changes that we discussed last October. There is no fiscal impact to Roanoke County. Staff recommend that the Board of Supervisors repeal Chapter 8.1 Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance and repeal Chapter 23 Stormwater Management Ordinance. Approve the attached ordinance for the first reading and name it as Chapter 8.1 and set June 25th, 2024 for the second reading and public hearing. I hope I was able to articulate what's recommended and what we're asking the board for. I'll be glad to address any questions you might have. Mr. Chairman.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I was trying to follow your presentation. Let's talk about lot drainage a minute. You gave us a presentation maybe a couple of times in the last 2 or 3 years on lot drainage. Does this address the lot drainage, or did you say it didn't include any of that?
It does not include any of the recommendations to amend any of the erosion and sediment control or stormwater management at all. This is mainly to combine the current erosion and sediment control and stormwater management into one ordinance.
Okay.
I know it's difficult to probably comprehend, or a lot of people that are listening to this for the first time, to see these two ordinances combined. But when you read it, and if you're familiar with the current ordinances, you will find out that there is no changes. As I mentioned, we just use the model ordinance that the state have developed. They have used or they received some assistance from people that are very experienced in these two ordinances and also familiar with the state law to come up with one model ordinance. And to my knowledge, most of the municipalities that we have had dealing with, they are using the same ordinance the way we are using it. I'm glad that we got to this point, because we would like to have it done before July 1st, 2024. It will be effective, or the state want us to use it by July 1st, 2024.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Now, just one more question.
Yes,
How
sir.
are our construction industry performing with regards to lot drainage? Has it been a big issue of late, or is it kind of one that's remedied itself?
I appreciate the questions, but it will be hard for me to really give you a comprehensive answer to that, because first,
I'm not looking for a comprehensive
focusing-
answer. I'm
yeah.
looking to ask you, is the problem still systemic, or has it been taken care of?
There are a few things that we would like to adjust. There are some issues that we find out, or my engineers find out, they're argumentative with some of the contractors and some of the engineers. So we'd like to clarify that sometimes in the future. So I would say it's a calm at the moment, but there are some issues that we cannot really avoid.
Okay,
Related to the lot drainage.
Right, thank you.
I hope this is.
I'd like to
appropriate.
visit with you and Mr. Blunt about that subject later, in light of some other things that are occurring, and we can talk about that then.
Will be
Okay.
my pleasure, sir.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Mr. Chair, I got some comments.
We'll go after the resolution. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So move.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion on the motion? Now you can.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So there have been some lot issues in my district, and Tarek's department has done a real good job with what they're doing. And it's a different developer, a different builder. So I like the action that they're taking, and Mr. Blunt. So as far as what we're hearing with the stormwater management and the erosion sediment control, I'm dealing with this in every county that I build in. So this is the consolidation of the document. I live and breathe this stuff all the time. We just had one of our stormwater management ponds inspected by the county. So you know, it's normal course of business that we want to make sure that we're doing things right with you know, rain runoff, basically. And DEQ, they're always around inspecting not only Roanoke County, but they'll pop in on some of our projects too, depending on the size of them and if there's any problems. Anyway, I just want to add that for comments.
So your motion is to approve the reading of the ordinance and to schedule a second reading and public hearing for June 25th, is that correct?
Yes.
2024, is there a second on that?
Tammy already said.
Tammy already seconded. Thank you. Is there discussion on the motion anymore?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mahoney?
I have about 7 or 8 questions. I don't know whether today is the better time to raise them or wait till a second reading. I guess I only got back in town last night on the Amtrak train at about quarter to 11. So I couldn't read this on the train, so I read it a little bit last night and then this morning. Typically, Mr. Lubeck gives us an ordinance, and we have the strike-throughs, and we have what all the changes are. And I didn't see any of that here, and so that confused me, quite honestly. I heard Mr. Monier say that substantively there are no changes, so that's good. I guess I would like to see what was deleted and what was added and what was altered going forward. That's number one. Number two, I'm not focused on the specific, what I would call substantive provisions. I know that in order to do this work, you have to have certain certifications from the state and certain approvals and certain letters after your name. That's beyond me. I guess I was focusing more on the enforcement aspects, and those were the questions I was going to ask Mr. Lubeck in terms of, are we changing anything with respect to enforcement, number one? Number two, are we doing the bare minimum with respect to, for example, some of the special provisions on page 35 of our ordinance, section 8.1-13, where we have different 2,500 square feet, 10,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet, and there's different rules for all those. Are those being changed in any manner from what we have now? And are these the bare minimums that are set out under state code, or are we going above and beyond those bare minimums? I know in the past there's been substantial debate on this board as to whether or not we should go beyond what those bare minimums are. And I think in the past we've had some horror stories where the downstream property owner got flooded, and part of the problem was we were following the bare minimums, and I thought there was some direction at one time by previous boards to try to go beyond those bare minimums. With respect to penalties, page 40, are those penalties the maximum that we can apply? Are those the minimums that the state authorizes us to do, or can we do more than that? At least in my experience, and again, I haven't looked at this since 2015, a lot of times it's cheaper to pay the penalty than it is to do the compliance. In my experience, I had the unfortunate aspect of being elected the president of my homeowners association when we moved into our new development 2 years ago.
What did you do?
We had why'd I do that? Good question. We had an issue with our stormwater pond. And I had contacted several private firms to correct the problem that the stormwater pond had, and it was going to cost like $4,000. Now, I was very lucky that a couple of people in my HOA had some talent, and they knew some people, and one guy was a contractor. We were able to do a lot of that work by ourselves, and we only had to spend like $500 or $800 with an outside firm to correct it. But if you're charging somebody $200 for a penalty, I'll pay that $200 every day as opposed to going forward and bringing a system into compliance. So my question is, with respect to penalties, are we at the bare minimum, or are we doing something better to encourage folks to do the right thing? With respect to, I think it's on page 40 or page 43, there is under the various solutions to a problem, I had thought that there was a provision where the county could go in and actually take action to try to correct a problem. And, yeah, I'm sorry, it's page 42 under subsection.
You mean 42 on the
Page,
package?
yeah, page 42 of our package. 8.1-20, subsection D, D as in dog. It talks about how the owner can, if the owner has sustained damage, they can go to court and try to fix the problem. I thought the county had the power to do that, and I don't see that in this document. Had that been deleted, or is that something that we're just going to pass that responsibility on to the property owner? At least my recollection in the past is the county also had that power, and we just didn't place all that on the property owner to do that. So I'd ask a question about that. On our agenda, page 39, Peter, could you help me? This is page 39, and it's right before you go to the next page. It's under 8.1-19 enforcement, and it's A2, and it's a second paragraph. And you go 5 lines down, and it's at the very end of the sentence. The sentence begins, however, if the administrator finds that any such violation is grossly affecting, I never heard of grossly. Is that in our existing ordinance? I wasn't sure of that being a legal term, of being grossly affecting somebody's property. Just a dumb question. When you go to the next section, we also, under B, subsection B, it's on page 40 of our agenda, where we can take informal or formal or informal administrative enforcement procedures. I'm not sure what administrative enforcement procedures are and how that differs from anything else we're doing. And page 37, under hearings, section 8.1-16, we're placing on Mr. Kaywood the responsibility to conduct these. Richard, if you want to do that, that's great. I kind of thought that, I guess I use the example of like personnel matters. If you have an employee who has a personnel issue, he or she has to deal with immediate supervisor, and then they go to their department head, and then it comes to you. This looks like it's going to go directly to you. I just figured there's an easier, isn't there an easier way to resolve these by going through sort of a chain of command? It's almost like it's jumping from one of our inspectors up to you. Is that what you want to do?
It's my understanding that this gives me some latitude to designate who that is, right? So it's not necessarily me personally in all cases, that I would have that ability to assign these.
Designates.
Yeah, because this is like this is, I think, the Commonwealth's model ordinance, and I'll just harken back to my VDOT days where the VDOT commissioner did everything, and then that was all done through delegation.
Through delegation,
Yeah.
okay. It just, I remember other approaches where if I had a citizen had a problem with a police officer, you know, you'd send them to whoever the shift captain was, and then the chief, and then not to you. And the way this is written, it almost seems like it immediately jumped to you.
Mr. Mahoney,
Paragraph.
Thank you, Madam. Yes, if I can invite your attention, this is a very good question on whether we had purposely substituted language in place of the model ordinance, where we had in all places where someone is making decisions, we had put by default the county administrator or his designee, so that Richard would have the authority if there are structural changes to the department. We wouldn't need to rewrite the ordinance. He could just rename someone else. And under hearings, you're correct, under Section 8.1-16, subsection B, so the hearings held under the section shall be conducted by the county administrator or his or her designee. So it would follow that same pattern where he would be able to do what makes sense.
Okay. So you avoided having to put in the ordinance the hierarchy within the
Yes, sir.
organization. You leave it up to the administrator to decide, to create that hierarchy.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Finally, page 25 under 8.1-6 F. Just not right now, but when you get a chance. What's the difference between a variance and an exception? It seems like you have one or the other and not both. So,
Okay.
thank you.
You didn't sleep much last night.
No, I didn't. No, I did not.
You know, I've had some of those nights too, but last night wasn't one of them. I'm glad you took the time.
Well, I was trying to
look that
read
over.
this on my phone on the train.
I
and
know.
it just
You
didn't
forget
work.
It doesn't work.
It didn't
It
work.
don't frustrate yourself that way. No, it was a good discussion. Sounds like this should have been something we had a work session on before today.
Well, it may be very simple, and as I said, maybe if we had the typical version where you had the strike-throughs and then the italics, I could have eliminated a lot of this, but now you forced me to read this, and it was the first time I had to read it in 9 years.
Could you make amends, staff, and get him a red line copy? And get us all a red line copy before we hear this again on June 25th.
And we can certainly figure something out. That's something that we had thought about. This is just a unique situation where we're doing away with two
Yeah.
and combining with a new, starting
Yeah.
with a model ordinance. But we will figure something out to make it clear what, if any, substantive changes or even minor changes have been made. We'll
Yeah,
make
the
that
cliff
work.
notes on that would be just very much appreciated.
But the more important part to me, I guess, is under this approach, are we doing the bare minimum with respect to fines and penalties and the different lot sizes, or are we going better than that?
And Mr. Chairman and Mr. Mahoney, on that point, it may be well prudent to have a work session on this. At this point in time, there are simply really no changes being made with regards to penalties, enforcement, bare minimums. Everything in here is the same as what the county is doing at this point in time. So if any changes are desired, that I think would be wise to hold a
Well, I
work
don't
session
think the
before we
timing,
adopt
though,
this.
from what I understand from what Mr. Manir is saying, we need to have this on the books July 1. So I don't want to delay it by having a work session, and we have too many other issues to deal with on the 25th of June.
And for point of clarification on that point, the state's law that requires localities to consolidate the two ordinances is what becomes effective on July 1st. Localities are then obligated to work towards combining them, but there would certainly be no penalty to the county if we needed to take some more time to look through this and make changes that were desirable.
Well, if there's no substantive changes, probably not.
But we can have a work session later on down the road.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Yeah, I think that'd be better to have, don't you all agree, to have a work session down the road? Because some of the fines were anemic. Some of the fines were anemic, so we need a work session on this
Well, it's easier to pay the
After
fine
July.
than to spend the money to bring
into
the
compliance.
stormwater pond into compliance.
Yeah. Okay, so with that said, if there no more discussion on this motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Radford has
Mr. Mahoney brought up a bunch of stuff. I read through this ordinance, and I didn't see anything that you're doing different, that we, as a user, so I'm a user of this. I see it every day on my construction sites. And Mr. Mahoney, you said is the bare minimum. I've built in other counties that are bare minimum. Roanoke County is not bare minimum.
Okay.
We are getting our full dollar's worth from Tarek's department. I mean, they're doing a good job. I mean,
That's
we
good.
want to keep, sediment out of our streams. So I would like to say that I'm the perfect builder developer. No, things happen. I have to fix E&S all the time.
I heard you were. Don't disappoint.
No. The biggest thing is as soon as you scratch dirt, they want it covered in 10 days, and that's the toughest thing to do in new construction. Is you're always moving your grade around. So.
Yeah.
No, this is not the bare minimum by any means.
So how many fines have you paid? No.
Back in the day?
Okay.
That's it.
Mr.
All right.
Chairman, if you allow me for one
We're
quick
going to move on
comment.
this time. We're going to move on, okay? Will the clerk please call the roll? Thank you.
Mr. Radford?
I forgot what we were. Yes,
First reading of
You
the
made
ordinance.
the motion.
I got it.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd? Yes. Mr. North?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tari. Item F, appointments. Do any board members have an appointment that's not been given to the clerk, included in the board report for agenda item F? No one has any? Is there a motion to approve the appointment set forth in the board report for item F?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion on this? There being none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes. Item G, consent agenda. Does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion? Okay, is there a motion to adopt all matters on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve the 5 items under our consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes. Item H, citizens' comments and communications. Do we have any citizens signed up to speak today? Does anyone wish to speak that hasn't signed up? Okay, thank you. Item I, reports. Is there a motion to receive and file the reports that have been included with the agenda under item I?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? There's a second. Any discussions on that motion? There being none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes. Item J, reports and inquiries of board members. Ms. Hooker.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I have some exciting news to share that my board members will enjoy.
I bet I know what it is. Can I guess? Can I guess what you're going to tell us?
I think you probably
Okay.
could, but I want to send out a hearty congratulations to Glenver High School, to their boys' team and their girls' soccer team. Both won state championships in soccer, and we're just incredibly proud of them. Want to send out congratulations to all the athletes, the coaches, the whole community that participated and supported them in this journey. And let me just put out another shout out there that this is the boys' second time in a row. They're back-to-back state champions. So we're just really proud of them. I'd like to encourage either Madeline or Rhonda that we should be working towards bringing them in to congratulate them in person. My second item is I've had a couple of encounters with our excellent IT team, and they've helped me personally with some of my issues. I've got a lot of issues. And also with just preparing for future meetings with Microsoft Teams, and I'm just very appreciative of their good work and their talent. They're very user-friendly, so thank you very much to IT. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mahoney.
Since I bored everyone to tears
You've
under
used your time
D1,
already, haven't
I'll
you?
pass. I have nothing to add.
No. Okay, thank you. Mr. Radford.
Yeah, just one thing, Mr. Chair. We just recently had our D-Day memorial, 80th year since that D-Day invasion. Just a very moving tribute to all those still surviving, the ones that gave the ultimate sacrifice. I'm just glad to see all the things that went over in Normandy, France, that was televised on TV, and a lot of the local stuff too at our D-Day Memorial over in Bedford County. I just applaud those men and women that they set a path that I'm so grateful for, that we're here today, not speaking German or Japanese. Thank you.
Ms. Shepherd.
The only thing, I've just got 2 items. One is, I'll go back to Martha. I have a nephew that plays on that Glenver team, and 2 that played on it last year, so that is exciting, and we were excited to see that they had won the state championship again. The other thing is, I just wanted to thank Magnets USA for allowing me to visit. Week before last, toured the facility. I had no idea they did all the things that they do. So I definitely will be using them in the future, and I think it's just a great way to get out and learn what a lot of these businesses do and the different things that they can offer. And that's all I've got for today.
You can thank our Economic Development Department because they're proactive.
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Well, Phil North has something to say now.
Of course.
He's never speechless, I just want you to know. So anyway, you bring up a point. Bonnie and I went Saturday to the D-Day Memorial for the evening service they had, which was just outstanding. Mm-hmm. The Virginia Tech School of Creative Technology put on a performance, a show, and they worked on it for 15 months, that was centered around a poem written by a soldier on D-Day called Omaha Beach. And it scripted the whole presentation around every line of that poem. And it's pretty emotional for a lot of people that were there. But if you ever get a chance to see it, and I don't know if they're going to have it again on YouTube or whatever, but I'm going to encourage you to watch that, because it scripted how everything unfolded before, during, and after that day in history. And kudos to the Bedford D-Day Memorial or Foundation for putting that on. That was well worth the time, and it was a great evening. I did meet with staff as we continue to meet with staff on the Hollins Library and the architect for what's going to happen there, and more about that later on this year. On June 4th, I attended the YMCA announcement at Tanglewood Mall, $2.5 million, 47,000 square foot investment. It's quite the facility that it's going to be, I think, opening up in November, December. On June the 7th, I attended the fire and EMT graduation, and I want to share with you, there was 22 graduates in school, recruit school number 37, and I want to share with you the 4 from Roanoke County that graduated. Grayson Chitwood, Chase Dent, Anthony Hightower, and James Woodward graduated from the Roanoke County Fire and Rescue, and so we salute them on their new assignments that they found out about, I guess it was that day, as to whether they had a report Saturday or Monday. And so we're going to have more graduations in the future. And that was, I like the way that was well scripted for a regional fire academy, and the way everyone participated from all of those leadership positions. I just want you to know that that was well appreciated, and I noticed how well that was scripted. There is one thing that's going to happen. If I don't mention this, I know I'll get in trouble from Megan Cronise. 419 Electric Road Improvement Project design public hearing will be held on Monday, June 17th. That's next Monday, 5 to 7 p.m. on the 3rd floor of this building. And you can find out about the project to improve safety and traffic flow on the 0.3 of a mile section of Route 419 Electric Road between Ogden and Starkey Road. The project entails constructing a 3rd lane in both directions of Route 419, adding new sidewalks, crosswalks, and bicycle lanes. In addition, the intersection of 419 and Starkey will be modified with a through-cut concept and signal phase reductions, similar to what's going to happen on 220. The intersection of Route 419 and Ridgetop Road will be changed to a restricted crossing U-turn or a R-cut. Both intersection changes will improve traffic flow on 419. And so VDOT will be there with representatives as well as Roanoke County to present and answer questions and take in your comments. You may also email your comments to eli.mannon at, let me repeat that. You can email those in to eli.mannon, M-A-N-N-O-N, at vdot.virginia.gov and reference 419 improvements. Or you can provide information to M. Cronice, C-R-O-N-I-S-E, at RoanokeCountyVA.gov. So, hope we have a good turnout. I got to confess, I was going to come, but I got to have a little oral surgery, so I won't be in much shape to be there. But if you do see me walking in, just make sure I sit down. Okay, with that said, we will go on to a work session with Energy Rights staff, Chloe Hodges, Ben Wilson, and Skylar Sunk. Momentarily, the board will recess to the third floor for the work session. However, before doing so, I would like to move that the board go into closed session upon completion of the work session. Item L, closed meeting pursuant to the Code of Virginia as follows. I move to go into closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711, subparagraph A, Part 1 of the Code of Virginia, for the board to meet with the county administrator and subsequently the county attorney to discuss the county administrator's and the county attorney's annual performance evaluations. Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Radford?
Yes.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes. The board will now recess to the third floor for the work session. Following the work session, the board will enter into closed session. Thank you very much.